Hello, welcome to today's tutorial. Today we want to learn how to perform mathematical calculation using Microsoft Excel. In performing mathematical calculations in Excel, you can type in your values directly. Aside from that, you can reference a cell while doing so. So in this case, we want to remind you that in calculation in Excel, you use the addition sign on your keyboard here as an addition, and then you use this sign for subtraction, you use this asterisk sign for multiplications, and you use the slash sign for division as well. And take note that when entering mathematical formulas, the formula should be preceded with an equal to sign. So let's say I want to perform a simple calculation of 50 plus 70. So I will start first with an equal to sign, equals to 50 plus 70. 50 plus 70, and I press enter. So here is the result. Aside from that, I could do complex calculation. Let's say I have equals to sign, I open parentheses, and then I type 20 plus 20 plus 6 plus 90, and then close parentheses, and then I hit the enter key. So there you see, I can still go back to that, select that, and then put a cursor here on the formula bar, and then use the division sign, say divided by 4, and there you go. If I press enter, so you see, whenever I click on the cell, what happened on that cell will be displayed on the formula bar. Furthermore, you can use a reference cell as well as combine it with a value to perform your calculation. Let's say I want to insert something here, and I start with an equals to sign, equals to cell this. But let's have an open parenthesis first, open parenthesis, 20 plus 15 plus 17, and then we minus, let's put a minus sign, minus 11, and then we close the parenthesis, and then we divide by, say, a number 9 plus cell 16, and there we go. We hit the enter button, and that's what we have. So you see, you can combine the cells and then as well as a value or a figure, as you may wish to call, to perform your own calculation as well. You can always go back to the formula bar to omit anything or any cell in reference that you wish to omit, as the case may be. So that's what we see. The next thing we want to look at is the use of formula in Excel. Microsoft Excel provides a range of formulas for you to choose from when performing your calculations. So first of all, when you want to insert a formula, you have to choose the cell that you want your data to appear. Let's say I want the data to appear here, and then I want to have a formula that will give me an average of what we have here. Aside from that, I will also look at a summation of what we have here, and as well as the minimum value and also the maximum value. So without wasting time, I move to the formula tab, and then using this symbol, I choose the average. When I click this average, you see it will automatically assign a range to it. But I can custom what I want. Let's say I want it stop at G8. So that is it. Aside from that, I can manually bring my cursor to the edge of this, and my cursor will change, and I click and hold down the mouse to define the boundaries or the range to which I want the calculation to take place. Aside from that, I can as well go through it by simply selecting the cell and then pressing the equals to sign. And then if I know the formula I want to use, I can start typing average, and then it will come out here, and I'll double click it. And that will come out with an open parenthesis. Thereby, I can select the cell and hold down and define the range of cell that I want to. And after that, I'll click the close parenthesis and then click enter. So that will give me a range. The same thing applies with if I want to have a summation of it. I can simply come to this point and then click on summation and then define the range of cells that I want it to sum. And then after that, I'll press enter. Also in minimum, I can also choose the minimum formula and then define the range of cells that I want to apply that to or want it covered, and then I choose enter. The same applies with maximum. If I want to have the maximum value of that, I can then select the cell I want the contents to appear and then come to the formula and then choose maximum and then define, click and hold down and cover and release my mouse, and then it will define the range of cells that I want it to cover. And then after that, I press the enter key. So that is it. Without having to do this selectively, I can simply point to this the edge of the cell and my cursor will change to a plus sign, telling me that I can auto copy the formulas. So that formula will be duplicated across board, taking cognizance of the cells as the case may be. There we go. We also have other ones here, other formulas here. But in Excel, these are not simply referred to as pure formula because they are not purely formula to say. They are called functions. Functions are pre-written formula. So in Excel, we call these functions. Then it's also important to know that when you're working with functions, because I will be using the word functions now, when we are working with functions, there are guidelines that you should know. The first guideline is that you make sure that in using a function that you have to use an equal sign to start the formula. So using an equal sign to begin a formula is the first guideline that you must note. And aside from that, you make sure that you specify the name of the formula. This is what I mean here. This is an example of a function. You start with an equal sign and then you specify the name of the function, be it average function, sum functions, sum if functions, and so much more that we're going to look at. And then aside from that, you use parentheses to enclose an argument. So aside from the equal to sign, we also have a function name, and then you open a parenthesis to insert in your arguments. And so these are called arguments. So without wasting time, let us look at the other functions that we have. Remember, we have looked at the average functions. We have looked at the summation function, which is simply that of total. We have looked at the maximum and the minimum functions as well. There are also other functions. Let's start with the sum if formula first. Let's get rid of this. And then here is a formula we want to use, a sample of the sum if formulas. So let's say we have this, and then let's assume you own a company, and your own company have offices in different locations in the world. And these are the locations that we have in here. We have it in Tokyo, London, Moscow, Jerusalem, and Lagos. Now, and then the company runs different projects. And then this number one, the one in Tokyo, 65,000 worth of project, and then he made an income of 8,000 out of that, and then so on down to the one in Lagos, and then the income it made was about 5,000 out of this a project that was 48,000. So now you're asked to find some of the income for projects worth over 35,000. So projects that are worth over this amount. So let us have the summation, that is the total of the income met so far. So let's say I want to insert down that now, and then we will start with the equal to sign, and then we start with the formula name, the sum if. We double click that and that comes out, and then what happens is for us to define next the range. And then when we define the range, and then we close that with a comma, and then we open to the next thing, which is the criteria. So what's the criteria? Greater than 35,000. So we then define our criteria, we quote it, greater than 35,000. The 35,000 could be your country currency or any currency you may wish to call, and then we close the quotation, and then we close that set of argument, that's the criteria, with a comma, and then we move to the next thing, which is the sum range. Now look at the sum range, the range of from which the value will be summed. And so we define that range, and then we use close parentheses, and then we hit the enter button. So that will give us the sum of the income of the project worth over 35,000. The next case we want to treat is sum of the project worth over 40,000. Take note of the difference in this. This, you were requested for sum of the income, but in this other case you're being asked for sum of the project worth over. So sum of the project is this. So we're going to use this formula. We can simply copy this and then paste on the formula bar, but first of all we'll assign a cell in which the result will be inserted. So then we paste the formula, and then we have defined the range having passed the formula, and then we click the enter. So that gives us the sum of the project worth over 40,000. Also, we want to look at sum of the income for project worth equals to 45,000, meaning under this project worth we want to have a summations of values that are above 45,000. That's simple. And so we select the cell that we want it to be written in, and then we can simply copy the formula, but let me use the keyboard at this point. So we have equals to sum if, and then we have cell B3 down to B7. So after this range, of course the range are the cells in which Excel will search through for the criteria that I'm going to give. So having defined the range, now I put comma, and then I move to define the criteria. So the criteria in this case, I have to quote it, equals to 45,000. That's the criteria, and then I'll close the quotes. Then when I'm done with that, I will give a comma sign to show that I'm done with that. The next thing is the sum range, and this sum range simply refers to the actual cells to add if they are corresponding cells in range matches the criteria to say. So having gotten the criteria, the next is the sum range now. So the sum range, I can simply use this, and then when I'm done with that, I close the parentheses, and then I hit the enter key, and so that will give me what I want to have. Let's use the keyboard and give the enter key so you see what happened there. Let us also look at another function. Let's bring in a case. Let's say average of all income for all offices without, or you may say excluding, Jerusalem. So average of all this income that we are having here, but in calculating that, don't include Jerusalem. That's what it simply means. So the formula is here, equals to average if or open parenthesis B3 colon B7, and then you close, and then you move to the criteria, which is excluding Jerusalem. So let's say I want to insert that here, and then I'll paste what I have on the formula bar and then click enter. So that's it. Equals to average B3 column B7 close comma, open the quotation, less than, greater than, asterisk, open parenthesis, Jerusalem, close parenthesis, of quotes, comma, C3 colon C7, and then you close your parenthesis also again. So that's what will give you that result. Aside from that, we also want to look at other functions as well. We want to look at the COUNTIF function. Let's assume you own a company and this is the staff of your company. And then on that, we have challenges that we want to solve. The first one is number of cells ending with the letters R, R, Y in the fruits. So let's say these are the staffs of your company and they are given these fruits by the company as a gift. And then this was the remark when each of them received these gifts. And then these are their annual wages though. And then there's also a column for you to calculate 15% of their wages, as well as you add the 15% of that their annual wages, the AWU, and then put it in this column. And as well as the company intends to give them a payoff of 2 times the annual wages. So you have to fill in their values or figures here as the case may be. So first of all, let us start with the number of cells ending with letters R, R, Y. And here is the formula for that. So now let us look at this first case. Permit me to zoom out a little so we can see clearly, and then move this to this other side, and then move this to this other side, and then move this also to this other side. And then aside from that, we start proper. So first we want to look at number of cells ending with letters R, R, I. So under these fruits, under the fruits column, as we are instructed, we want to look at the numbers of cells which has the words ending with letter R, R, Y. So we now use this formula. Let's say we want to insert that in here. Okay, let's use this case. So we copy this formula and then we paste it on the formula bar. But take note, we have selected a cell of intent there, and then we paste. And so after that, we click enter. So you see the results there being 3. So if you go through this, you see that it is only 3 fruits that have their letter ending with double R, Y. Aside from that, we also look at another case wherein we are asked for numbers of staff with banana in the fruits column. So looking at the fruits columns, we see some staff have banana. So we want to know their numbers using a formula. So the formula is equals to COUNTIF, open parentheses, U3 colon U12, comma, and then U5. The U, of course, references the column. Your own case may be a specific column of your own interest. So let's copy this, and then we paste it there on the formula bar. But first, ensure you assign a cell of intent first. You paste this on the formula bar, and then that will appear, and then you click enter. The last, we want to also look at numbers of staff with wages greater than 30,000 in the annual wages column. So look at the annual wages column here, but we want to look at those that earn above 30,000. So let's look at that. This is the formula for that. We copy the formula, and then we ensure we define the cells of intent, and then we choose the formula bar, and then we paste that, and then we click the enter. So we see 7 of these staffs in above 30,000. Next, we want to look at the 15% of their annual wages. So 15% is usually 15 over 100. So let's start it with an equals to sign. Then we open parentheses, and then we have 15 divided by 100. And then we close our parentheses, and then we hit the enter button. So that's it, 15%. So but what we want to do is 15% of each of their wages. So we simply have to multiply this by the value of this. So we're now going to insert asterisk sign, multiply by this, and then we hit the enter. So that will give us 15% of 45,500, and that we run through, we duplicate the formula across, and so that will give us 15% of all their wages. The next case we want to look at is where the company wants to add 15% of their wages to their original annual wages for them. And so we use this will be equals to this plus this, and then we hit the enter button. So that's what will happen. We run through that by duplicating the formula across. So that's it. Also, here comes a case where the company wants to pay them off by double of their annual wages. They want to give them double of their annual wages as a payoff money. So how do we calculate that? So we simply will now have equals to this multiplied by 2. And then hit the enter. So we duplicate, make sure you point and the cross sign comes out, and then you duplicate the formula across. The next function we want to look at is the if function. What this function does is that Excel will return a value if a condition that you, the user, specify is evaluated and is found true. But if it's found to be false, it will also return a value that is being defined by you. That value that you return will be defined by you, the user. Let's put it into practice. Assuming we have a case where the company gives a test to grade the staff, and then we have this as the test results here. Let's bring this closer. And then we also have a function here, the if function, to use and solve the challenge. The first challenge we want to solve is if the second staff pass. In other words, we are to allot a fail or pass remarks to the second staff. And then secondly, we'll give a grade, that's to say a letter grade, which we have defined here, to each of the staff. So first of all, this is the formula we are going to use to find that. But take note that in the case of if function, there are 3 core issues that you need to solve. The first one is a logical test. That is to say, a test that whether it's true or whether it is false. That is to say, any value or expression that can be evaluated to be true or false. And then we also have the second thing, which is value if true. What we mean by value if true is the value that is returned if logical test is true. So if this logical test is true, this value will be returned. But if the logical test is otherwise, in other words, is false, this is the value that will be returned, the false value. So we're going to put this formula into use now by selecting it, and then we copy. Then we define where, let's say we want to have it on this cell. So we have to allot either fail or pass remark. So without wasting time, we insert a formula into the formula bar and then we click enter. So when we click enter, you see that from the logical criteria which we have given, that for this to be a fail, it must be less than 50. But if it's above 50, then it has to be a pass. So looking at that, this second staff has 60, and that becomes a pass. Another case is to give a grade to this staff. Let's start with the first staff here, John Philip. And let's select this cell to be the intent cell. Now, we are going to use this formula, take note of this formula, to find out a letter grade for this staff. So we're going to use that to assign it. And then without wasting time, we'll paste that formula on the formula bar. Please do ensure you copy this formula and try it yourself. And then we click enter. So from the formula, the if function, the logical test is that if it is less than 59, let's get this clear for you to understand, please. If it is less than 59, it has to be what? A D. And then after D, we then have F. But in this case, if it is greater than 69, it's going to be a C. And then if it is greater than 59, it is going to be a B. And if it is greater than 89, it's going to be an A. So with that formula, we can drive through this. Next, we want to briefly look at charts in Excel. Now, in assigning a chart to a series of data or a range of data in Excel, you have to select the data. Let's say we have a company here that have been running a business, and then we want to be able to analyze the progress made per month and how business or sales have been. So we'll select the columns or the range that we want to present, and then we will then go to charts, and then we can choose recommended charts where Excel will recommend a suitable chart to illustrate such a data. In this case, we have a clustered column charts here. So let's use a clustered column in this case. The first one, if you select, you also have different options here, stacked area and so much. So let's use clustered column here, and then if we choose OK, so you see you will have a chart, as well as you can choose the control points to increase or decrease the size of your chart as well. Aside from that, there are other options that you can add, such as the chart's title, the axis, the table of that chart, the table, such as the table with keys or table with legends, as the case may be. In our next tutorial, we shall look at charts in details, and then we shall also look at how to insert images and shapes and smart art and many others. Do make sure you subscribe, you like, and then you also share to encourage us. And then make sure you turn the notification button on so you receive updates not only from Excel but in Microsoft PowerPoint, in AutoCAD, in Lumion, in many other BIM software, that's building information models, including Revit and so on. Thank you so much for giving me your time, and remain abundantly blessed.